Salome. And Salome is the founder of AkiDwA. She's a researcher, a gender equality activist, and a human rights advocate with over 20 years' experience of working with underrepresented groups, in particular with women, children, and young people in Europe, Africa, and all around the world. In 2018, Salome was appointed to the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission by the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins. Salome has a master's degree in equality studies from UCD, and she is currently on her final year of undertaking doctorate research on conflict, peace building, and reconciliation at Trinity College Dublin. Hi, Salome.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me this evening. I was actually quite moved by John's poem. They were all actually quite good and with a lot of meaning. So thank you. And it's a great pleasure to be part of this evening, celebrating fathers and fathers who have contributed to our empowerment and to the way we have shaped in life. So I do really appreciate to be talking about my father and how he have shaped my life. As you know, because I've spoken to you before, myself, I was born in Kenya and I grew up in Kenya, actually in a family of 9. And my father has been, I think, a role model for all of us in the family because, for example, he valued education quite a lot. And, when you were growing up, when I was born, actually, he was a teacher himself. He was a head teacher of one of the primary schools in Kenya. And he had educated himself because he had been brought up in a very big family of where the father and the mother, they wouldn't be able to educate all of them. So as the firstborn of the family, he was asked to take care of himself. So he had to educate himself. And we saw him actually going to India. Before I was born, he went to India. And after I was born, he came to UK to study. So education was so valuable that, he felt that even us, like we were 5 girls and 4 boys, that we should get it. Well, actually, in many African countries, and in particular in Kenya, because I did even take a research of girls out of school back in when I was in Kenya in late 1990s, was that, boys were always prioritized when we come to education in Kenya. Many families didn't have money to send both boys and girls to school. And girls were seen that they will later get married and leave their families. So education was always prioritized actually to boys. But in our case and in our situation, all 9 of us are actually very highly educated, I would say that, and all of us actually, we are in good job. We've gone up to that level of education. But just to say that, apart from that, I also saw him as a man who valued not only daughters but gender equalities in general, and he motivated me quite a lot from that. Again, when you're growing up, in the custom, in Kenyan custom and tradition, it's very unlikely that a woman become, or inherit or get the property of the man when the man is alive. And my father actually gave a whole estate, a coffee estate, to my mother to manage. But not only to manage, she had to open a bank account and control the money and use that money. And that was actually amazing and shocking. And just actually before he died, because he died there in 2011, I was actually one of the people in the whole family of the 9 that he gave me a property. I'm a 6th born in the family, but he property as well, which meant, for him, he valued all of us equally. But he always actually praised the girls and said that the girls are his girls, and girls are capable of doing anything that boys can do. His passion for education was that, people would become better if they are educated. And he used to say that, education has no limit. You can get educated at any time of your life. And we saw this with him. He set a good example, even coming. He was late 40s, when he came to study in UK itself. But I also remembered actually a few weeks before he died, because he died on the 19th of February. And 2 weeks before he died, I had called him and we were talking about my eldest daughter. And he kept on insisting that I should make all effort and make sure that my daughter get good education, and that she has an education to back herself, especially what he called in a foreign land, that maybe if you don't have education, it will be very difficult to excel or to do better in life. And so I'm very actually happy, and I say he's in heaven, he's watching all this. My daughter just finished her 4-year Bachelor's of Art in Performing Art in Srigo, and she'll be graduating, God willing, now next month. So I am very happy that I've been able to fulfill one of the things that he wanted me to do. He wanted us to be able to do that. He wanted me to be able to do that before anything else. But I was also much inspired by his courage and faith. You know, we were brought up in the Catholic Church, and you know, for him, the ethos of the church and being humble was so much something that he always told us, that you know, we have to live in a way that we appreciate people. You know, he encouraged us actually to be courageous, and especially say that, you know, if there's any injustice that people are experiencing, you do not keep quiet, courage to talk about it. And I could see it actually because one time our school was almost grabbed, you know, by people who wanted to use the land and to have the land, and he challenged that in quite a big form. He also brought lawyers to be able to challenge that injustice. So standing up at and actually bringing us to places of where we could run anytime, that he was very sensitive. I also liked the way he used his influence, you know, to move things and to be able to convince people to do better. We didn't have, for example, a place for worship in my place, and we used to do the mass in my house because we didn't have anywhere. And he actually convinced people in my village where I come from to be able to construct the church. And then later on, he asked me, because I was here, can I help to buy the seats for the church? So he was a very influential person, and he would always want the best for everybody. He was actually a humble man himself, and I remember him saying that, you know, even whatever you do, you don't bring yourself on the front. And I saw him, like, when he came even to visit me here, and we went to the church here, he said he cannot sit on the front because you don't sit on the front because you can always be asked to go back or at the behind. And he said, but when you sit at the behind, you can be asked to come on the front, and that shows you are important. So you do not actually go throwing yourself and telling people to see how big you are or how good you are. You let people see it yourself, and they can praise you if they want, but do not go placing yourself or putting yourself into positions that actually may take the meaning of your humbleness or who you are at the end of the day. He was a very respecting man, and I learned from him, and he contributed quite a lot to how I respect people and how I see people, based on the fact that, you know, he was not the type that goes fighting people, and he respected people's privacy, but also people's ways of doing things. So he wouldn't actually force himself to doing things that are not you know, they are not, they're good for others, or they are not respectful. So there's quite a lot, you know, that I could talk about him, even his kindness and his giving, even reaching out. And actually, I've learned a lot from him of reaching out. And even here, I find myself every time trying to reach out to people to see how they are doing, how I can help, and all that. And even the founding of AkiDwA, because it was actually as a result of listening to people, talking to people, and actually using the influence of looking into how we can contribute to doing good and challenging the inequality that we were experiencing at the time. It was actually through the courage that I had seen from him, and through that kindness of reaching out and doing all these things. So he has actually influenced me quite a lot in that way. And also the empathy that I have, the empathy of empathizing with the situation in my fight for equality and justice. It doesn't have to be an issue that is affecting me. It could be actually an issue that is affecting other people. It doesn't have to be, and that's what he kept on saying. You do not have to fight for justice for the issues that is affecting you. You actually have to fight for other people as well, because if you're comfortable and other people are not comfortable, then it's not right. And I remembered actually, for example, when I was organizing in the early days of AkiDwA in 2004, and we had many migrant women, in particular African women, that had trained in AkiDwA on capacity building training. And these women had letters. I used the courage that I had gained from him, and also empathy that I had actually also seen that, myself, I wasn't facing deportation. There were almost 17,000 were deported. And, I came up with a statement which I presented in the Doyle. I initiated a campaign, the Coalition Against Deportation of Irish Citizens, and I gathered people of whom actually people came to actually support, through the influence of explaining to them of what is happening, but also strategizing on what we should do, and then getting that support from people itself. So it was quite good that I learned from him a lot of things, and those values I take them with me actually, to be able to reach out and to be able to help. It's quite unfortunate that he had to pass on, and what I actually hear from him is the echoes of everything that he was saying and everything he used to do. Actually, my picture with him that I've given to you was at the airport, because he used to come to the airport to drop me and pick me. And I remembered even 2007 there were conflict in Kenya, and I had to go home because I had already cut a ticket to go home that December, and he actually came quickly to pick me at the airport. That was his courage, and he said that I'll be there even if we die, we'll die all of us. So he was such a man that you would want to have and to continue having, because he was not selfish. He was selfishness himself, and we could learn quite a lot from him. So every time I hear the echoes of his words, the kind words that you do, but also his humbleness of not putting himself into fight or undermining people or trying to put other people down. That was the kind of a person he was. And for me to believe that, we are all born equal, whether we are men or women. And actually for him, he valued, I would say, and my mother always says even up to now, that my father valued his daughter more than his sons. And in my culture, again, when you die, it's the sons that hold your casket, and take you to the grave. But for him, he said, even my daughters can do that. They're equally able to do that. So he was a very positive man. And I think even sometimes when people are talking and they're talking about somebody, my father you will never hear him talking bad about somebody. And even for me here, I find myself saying, even if there's somebody, we are saying there's something wrong with that person, there must be something good about that person too. And so it's about being positive, it's about being supportive and not undermining others and pulling others down. And so to say that, the courage, the confidence, the influence that I have and everything that I have, it's him, because I went to a boarding school as well. So he used to come and visit me. He buys food and he does everything for me. So it's really like a man who was a feminist himself and wanted the best for not only for women but for the world. So that's him in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, what a man, what a great man, and what an incredible influence, because you're an extraordinary daughter, Salomé, like really what you've achieved. I mean, AkiDwa's going to be 20 years old next year, big anniversary.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we are going to talk so that we can work together, to talk about all these issues. There's quite a lot of her story which is not written on these migration stories of women, and actually linking to them what is happening now on the issues of racism, because AkiDwA was founded on those grounds, and I couldn't keep quiet, and I was actually going to talk about, like, you had asked, the healing from the trauma of patriarchy, because when I came to Ireland, and it was actually early years in 1994. I was a novelty people, had not seen. There were not many people of my, Africans, I call them beautiful people. And so you wouldn't see so many people. And then coming to 1998, when we had a lot of big numbers of people coming in at the time, so I started experiencing that in depth experience of both physical and verbal racism. And actually, even forming AkiDwA and putting AkiDwA up, it was actually as a result of my own experience of racial discrimination. If you look at our website, you'll see, because that's how we started it. I met women. I used to actually stop every woman, African woman in the street, and I asked them how are they getting on in Ireland. So my mobilization skills are also very good. I could talk to people, get their address number. We didn't have mobile phones that time, and then we could talk about our experiences. And the experiences of women were really, really bad. So with this courage and what I had learned from my father, that you cannot shy from injustice. If it's happening, you have to talk about it. I just felt that we needed to talk about it, and I gave those women courage. Even up to now, when some of the women talk and call in the office, they say how I give them courage to be able to stand up and talk, because I speak about my own experience. And that's why I wanted to say that it's very important that when we are challenging this, we are hearing from the trauma of patriarchy, to be brave and to step out of our comfort zone, and to be able actually to share about our experiences, and having that personal awareness of where we are coming from, and the willingness of looking into where we are going. So it's all links up into what we grow from to where we end up leading.
Exactly, and like the power of storytelling. I mean, is there another more powerful force? We saw that with the repeal the 8th referendum. It was the stories of everyday women, the silent voices, that won the referendum. And we're seeing that, I think, with the Black Lives Matter campaign, which I've been following intently for the last few weeks. Somebody said to me, the campaign doesn't have a leader like Dr. Martin Luther King in this lifetime. But I said, you watch it on Twitter, though, there are so many everyday heroes and heroines of the campaign, and voices that normally wouldn't be heard. And I was so moved. I mean, gosh, in floods of tears watching some of the stories, and the importance of being witnessed, being heard, and to be really listened to. And I think I told you, Salomé, I did my degree thesis on deconstructing colonial ideologies and racial stereotyping. I can honestly say it was one of the darkest 3 months of my life, studying racism and how those ideologies were constructed, the psychological processes. I got a huge insomnia from writing it. It was just like, if people even knew a fraction of the truth behind racism, it's chilling. So this is very, very close to my heart. For me, racism is a bigger truth than gender. It always has been. So I know we're working, we already decided that we're going to collaborate together on a huge project for the next 3 years before the riots started in the US. So hopefully we'll get the funding. It should be announced at the end of the month, but we'll make it happen no matter what. It's very hard. A huge respect for what you're doing. Like, it's just, for the last 20 years to be a trailblazer in that field, it's not easy.
It is actually, it's not easy, but the biggest challenge is that, there's still very deep inequalities that I've been trying to fight for the last 20 years. And sometimes you feel like, even when people talk about George Floyd, his killing and the way it happened, it's not that these issues, we've not been talking about them. In fact, I've been fighting like from the beginning and the founding time of AkiDwA, work in 1999, 2000, it was about racism. It was about an equal distribution of power in the way people are treated, in particular African women. We did our first research there back in 2007 on Black African women in the Irish labour market, which that time was the same with this time now. Nothing that has changed. And it's because actually there's no political will and commitment or even leadership to be able to help. That myself, I can do too much. I can actually take from what my father has given me and what the world have given me, because I've also been supported by so many other men and women out there to be able to reach where I am in terms of the organization and in terms of my own development. But not unless we have these structures changing, which is patriarchy, because we also have women's problem. But the issues of racism in this country is a huge problem, and so many people don't see it as a problem, and they don't think it exists. But it's so much there in so many forms.
There, and that's good as well, as it can be very subtle. But I tell you, I had a really profound experience. I went to a school called Wilson's Hospital School, and in the middle of nowhere in rural Ireland, like Multifarnham, if you ever heard of the village, it's like 20 minutes outside Mullingar. And I experienced how wonderful multiculturalism and inclusion can be. And I was only 15 years old at the time. There were students there from 24 countries. Every skin color, every religion, like it was just fabulous experience, and we all thrived. There was a richness in the diversity. You just don't get it in monoculture. Monoculture is boring. I thrive. I've always looked for those opportunities, but it's about integration and inclusion, and we've a lot to learn in Ireland, because the rest of Ireland is newly multicultural, and I think we do want to really learn. I think you saw that with the last election, we effectively silenced the far right politicians when they were election. We just said, not interested, we're not going far right. So that's a really positive step. But in terms of inclusion and diversity, like, I mean, I've hosted events and friends have come to me and said, God, it's so great to hear, a voice of a woman from Kenya or Palestine. I'm like, what do you mean it's so great? Of course you should be hearing their voices. Why are you not hearing these voices? And I'm not seeing them. They're not hearing these voices, in the Dublin cultural sphere, which I just find shocking, because I mean,
because people are excluded.
Years, so you live in London and Paris, like especially London, it's very integrated, and it's just you just thrive. It's so normal. It's so natural to be multicultural. Like we're a migratory species, It's like, they say the word diversity is like a modern buzzword. It's not. It's always been.
Yeah, but Ireland has to open itself. The people, I don't say, because when you say Ireland, it's people. We are the people. I'm talking about everybody. You're opening yourself by bringing us along to be able to be part of this program and project. There are so many things that are happening in Ireland every day, but people are not open to welcome other people, especially people from other diversities. People have to exclude others to be able to understand where they're coming from. People in Ireland used to see the black babies boxes. They used to hear of very far away in Democratic Republic of Congo or Kenya. Now we are here. We can actually engage and interact. But are people open to those dialogues and those engagements? Because that's how you can only challenge prejudice and stereotype. And it's the only way that you can actually educate people on where you're coming from, rather than what they have seen on the TV or read from books that they read from you as the human book yourself. But people have to be open to be able to do that. But you also have to challenge the institutional, racism and the structures, the systemic actually structures that are racist and discriminative. We have to be able to work on all levels, to be able to combat racism.
I hear you, and I'm really looking forward to working with you going forward in the future, because we've got two big themes actually for HerStory for the next 3 years, and one of them is inclusion, diversity.
That's brilliant, yeah.
So we're going to meet up, and we're going to, once the lockdown lifts, I think we should sit down together and really, I'll share my plans, and we'll co-create together, we'll collaborate on it. So that'll be really, I'd love to see you again. It'd be fantastic.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, we should do that.
Looking forward
Thank
to it.
you. Thank you so much.
You're amazing. What a trailblazer. Your dad is so proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, on to our next speaker. So we have Jim Fitzpatrick.